Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars The Force Awakens video. As I said in one of my previous videos, this will be the start of a new series of videos where I discuss The Force Awakens, specifically one topic about the movie. For the most part it's going to be talking about the character, so this one is going to be about Luke, and then obviously one of the next upcoming ones will be like, ones I'm planning to do either way are Snoke, obviously Rey, Finn, Poe, those type of things, Leia, Han, First Order Resistance. I think I'll cover that whole thing in one video. That's the sort of thing I'll be covering, like Maz Kanata, maybe some theories. So I'll have a bunch of videos over the next couple of weeks talking about The Force Awakens. I'm going to start with the ones where I'm fairly confident on. I've only seen the movie once, but I have read the novelization and also the prequel novel for The Force Awakens, which is Before the Awakening, which I reviewed on my channel just a couple of days ago. So I feel pretty okay with talking about Luke because he's not really in the movie that much. But I think there's a lot to discuss about the little things we find out about Luke in this movie. Because while he's only in one scene and doesn't speak, he is the first line of the crawler, Luke has vanished. And he's mentioned throughout by like Han, Leia, Maz, and in many ways the kind of character-filled plot of the movie, BB-8 carrying the piece of the map, Lor San Tekka, the mission that Poe went on. It's all in many ways leading to finding Luke Skywalker again after what happened. So he's very present throughout the movie without really being on screen, which is a really interesting way to do it. Setting him up as this legend, setting him up as amazing, that if he returned he would change things. And that's the whole Skywalker thing. They just inherently, because of the nature of where the Skywalker line in terms of being Force sensitive comes from, have this inherent nature of being able to really shift the balance of the Force one way or the other. And so I think that the balance of the Force is definitely something I'll talk about a lot as we go through these videos. So definitely, like, if you guys really want to know, like, just have me to go into my whole spiel about the balance of the Force. Let me know if you want to have a separate video on talking about that. Because that video goes like into the whole rule of two, through the prequels, like what exactly happens there with the balance of the Force, going into the originals. Like I could go through a whole thing with that. But Luke, you know, his actions I think in some ways can be explained about this stuff. I will, like, of course, be mentioning some stuff about the whole theory of, like, is Rey Luke's daughter towards the end of the video. But for now, let's just focus on Luke himself. As far as we are aware, like, very soon after Episode 6, Luke starts a new Jedi Order and begins to train other Force-sensitive people around the galaxy. It doesn't appear like Leia got any training, so she made a decision to not ever train in the ways of the Force. So that was a kind of interesting decision in itself, that they decided to do that. I'd actually like to know some of the backstory around that, because, like, obviously Return of the Jedi, it kind of seems like when she finds out she's Force sensitive properly, and then there's this sense of like, okay, you're my sister, you know, there's no real mention of like, I'm going to train you or anything like that. It just seems like that she doesn't want to be trained, or what. But things change with the birth of Ben. I'm just going to call him Ben Skywalker for the sake of easiness and making it clear that he is part of that lineage of Skywalkers, and that he, like Luke, has the kind of ability to change the balance of the Force because he's so powerful. Even though his name is probably more Ben Solo or Ben Organa. But let's just focus on this for now. This obviously changes things because inherently the balance of the Force post Return of the Jedi is that Luke is basically the most powerful Force-sensitive being in the galaxy, and it's basically just him. The whole rule of two basically kind of in a way ends with Vader and Palpatine, because Vader takes out the two of them effectively in one go. Palpatine's lightning takes out Vader, and he throws him down the shaft. So that kind of gets rid of the dark side, which it leaves as the only real Force-sensitive people as Leia and Luke. But because Leia isn't using her Force powers really, it's mainly just Luke. And so the balance of the Force in many ways, like post Episode 6, is just on Luke. he then decides to create a Jedi Order, which I suppose would shift things more towards the light. And obviously things change with the birth of Ben Skywalker, Kylo Ren, because then you have this new being with effectively similar abilities to Luke if he's trained well enough, and suddenly that's something that Luke doesn't have control over. And you can see some of the hesitation from Han and Leia in the movie about, like, should we have let Luke train him or not? The fact that Leia said, like, once we let him go, we knew it was gone. Because early on, like, they definitely get the sense that they knew he was super Force sensitive. More so than Leia, I would assume, just by the fact that they actually even had him be trained. Because I would assume that probably when he was young, he was probably quite dangerous with how powerful he was, without much control. So almost just for safety reasons, they perhaps had him trained by Luke, just so he could control his abilities and not just be kind of wild using them. But both of them are aware that there was a sense of Vader in him, that there was that Skywalker thing of he could be shifted to the dark side if things went wrong, which clearly did. And this is where Snoke comes into things. And like, I will purposely cover Snoke in a separate video, just because we basically know nothing about him, but there's a lot of theories about who he is and stuff like that. But either way, Snoke, dark side user, seemed to the theory. They basically hint at the fact that Snoke had kind of watched him his entire life and then chose a specific moment to kind of come into his life and just manipulate him towards the darkness, and kind of like following the path of Vader and stuff like that. But don't make the mistake Vader made at the end. And obviously convinced him enough to where Kylo wiped out the other Jedi with the Knights of Ren, the Knights of Ren mystery, again, I'll cover those in the Kylo Ren video. But it seems like Kylo Ren killed the other, I suppose, Jedis in training. I would assume at some point, like, dueled a little bit with Luke before escaping, but we're not entirely sure of that. Again, that's one of those vague things where, like, we probably at some point need to get that flashback. And I know the Star Wars movies don't tend to do flashbacks, even the TV shows don't, but I really hope we get the full flashback there, just to know the exact series of events that went down. Because why exactly Luke, from then, after this failure, went into hiding is an interesting thing in terms of his character, like why he specifically chose to do this. Because, like him, but just based on what we know of him from episode 6, would he not actively try to turn Kylo back, play an active role in the galaxy to stop this really powerful Force sensitive person being manipulated by someone, turn back, especially since it's a member of his own family? And I think the whole fact that it's a member of his own family is actually the key point here, in that they are two Skywalkers. This is his nephew. In that I think Luke is kind of almost afraid of like Kylo a little bit. Kylo's obsessed with the whole heritage of where he comes from, the Skywalker line. I think Luke is a little bit afraid of that himself, that he has control over himself and his balance between light and dark. But given that another Skywalker has turned to the dark side, I suppose he's afraid that if something happened, that he wasn't strong enough or something like that, and he was turned to the dark side, that would be the end. Like, no one could bring the Force back from the way things were if Luke got turned. So he kind of takes himself out of the equation and kind of goes into hiding, just so that basically the person who can turn the war either way is just out of the picture, and that it gives someone new a chance to take out, Kylo, turn him back and do it themselves. Whereas Luke is so powerful that, if he had enough confidence in himself to stay on the light side, he could probably solve most of the problems here. But I think what they're going for is that he perhaps has this fear that he could be turned to the dark side and that would end everything. So I think that's in a way why Rey is so important, in that I do not think Rey is Luke's daughter. I think that Luke purposefully made the decision to never have children. I would assume it's in part because of the way Ben was growing up, in that they could sense some Vader in him, sense his kind of his I suppose how malleable he was in terms of going either way, light or dark. I would assume after seeing that, because Luke wasn't in a relationship at the end of episode 6, Han and Leia were. I assume, they got married, they had a kid before Luke was even in any sort of relationship or planning a family. And he would make the decision after that, like, no, we can't have like a third Skywalker. That would just cause too much havoc. I assume Luke never had kids. So that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff like with people talking about like Rey, and I'll bring up the stuff in the Rey video about the evidence on her side of things. But from my perspective, talking about Luke, to me, it doesn't make a whole heap of sense that he would have children, just because of I suppose the way I'm focusing on things in the whole balance of the Force thing, because they're definitely going down that road with Kylo. He's obsessed with the lineage and how back and forth it could go. And then if you looked at some of the concept stuff that, like, I think reports were coming out earlier on the week that Hayden Christensen was initially planned to have some sort of a kind of cameo role in the film, and appear kind of to Kylo in kind of a vision, and be half Episode 3 Anakin and half kind of this robotic version, like one representing the light, one representing the dark. And to me, the fact that they were even thinking about that shows that to some extent that's the way they're going with the Skywalkers in this movie, that they are these beings who have the potential to go either way and shift the balance of the Force so drastically. That's why Snoke was so eager to turn Ben Skywalker. That's why he's so eager for Luke not to enter the battle, because he could ruin their whole plan. But Luke, I think, is afraid to enter the battle because he could ruin things for the Resistance if he was turned or if something went wrong. And that's why Rey is so important, because she is someone powerful in the Force who is not related to a Skywalker. And I think that's something they're very specifically going to go for. That she is this person who won't have these kind of temptations to the dark side. She is just a Force-sensitive person who is strong, and she won't be so easily kind of swayed as perhaps a Skywalker could be. And I think that will be an interesting thing to see in Episode 8. Like, does he immediately become okay with training her? Does he see something in her that is important? Because that's sort of the way I'm interpreting kind of Rey's visions, and that, like, she, with the training of a Skywalker, but not being a Skywalker herself, is important to kind of resolving this huge battle between this internal battle in like every Skywalker between light and darkness. I think they're going to do something like that. And what exactly Luke does in terms of his active role in things, I think, is going to be fascinating. Does it take most of Episode 8 for him to like come to actually train Rey, or what? But I'm not really sure. We're getting towards the end of my thoughts on Luke here. I think I feel pretty confident that like Rey is not Luke's daughter, purely just because of the Luke stuff. As I said, I'll address the Rey side of things in a future video. But we don't know enough to really heavily speculate about what exactly happens next. Just in the sense of like, does Luke at some point fight Kylo? But I really see it more as being that's Rey's fight. So what is Luke versus Snoke? And that relates to like who Snoke actually is in the end, because that's probably one of the biggest mysteries from the Force Awakens. Who is Snoke? And that sort of thing. So with Luke going forward, I think what they need to do is, one, really explain the events that led to Luke's exile. Explain the exact details of what happened with regards to Kylo being convinced to kill the other Jedi, and what happened from there. Did Luke witness this happening? Was he away when it happened? Did he have a chance to potentially take out Kylo but chose not to? And him regretting that because of what's happened afterwards. I'm fascinated going into the next movie with Luke. I think we are probably going to see something along the lines of what I did cover, this almost fear of what the Skywalker lineage is. Again, it's important to realize where they come from, and that Anakin basically starts the kind of chosen one line of people who can bring balance to the Force. And he came into being via a virgin birth, effectively the way of the Force balancing things out in response to, last we heard, and Darth Plagueis doing something with the balance of the Force. Anakin comes into being in response to that. That's kind of what the book Darth Plagueis leads us to believe, though, people question if that book is still canon or not, but we're not really sure. Either way, something happened with the Force that caused Anakin to come into existence, and suddenly there's this line of people who is extremely strong in the Force who can shift things either way. That's ultimately the key balance of the Force point going forward, in terms of why the Skywalkers are so important in the kind of galactic scheme of things. But that's going to be my thoughts on Luke in the movie. I hope I would like them to show what his reaction is to, like, Rey handing him the lightsaber, because obviously the lightsaber becomes this important thing because they call it Luke's lightsaber throughout the entire movie, but it's Anakin's lightsaber. He's the one who built that one. That's the one he has had since his lightsaber was destroyed in, like, episode 2. That's the next one he made, basically. And so you have this lightsaber from Anakin to Luke. Now Rey has it, but Kylo wants it. He's fascinated by this he's so obsessed with his family that he wants all the artifacts from his family. Like, he wants Anakin's lightsaber, but now Rey has it. And that's a really interesting thing, that I really think what they're going for is just that, like, Rey is just going to be this person trained by Luke, using the lightsaber of the Skywalkers, and she's going to kind of help Luke kind of turn things back to the light. But that's my thoughts for now. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on Luke in the movie. What do you think they're going to do with him? And I suppose, do you think I'm in any way correct about the whole balance of the Force thing I've gone on about here? But yeah, that's been the video. I'm not really sure what the next topic is going to be. I might leave it a couple of days before I get to see the movie again. Like, before I do the Rey video, for sure, I have to see the movie again to see the vision more clearly. I'll probably actually do Han or Leia next, just to cover the original characters, like, first. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.